Hello and welcome to the very 5th Back Pocket Game Club. The Game Club is where we pick one game a month to play through on stream with our community in its entirety. At the end of the month, we go deep on that title, full spoiler mode, and break it down as much as we want. I am Nick Richardson, but you already knew that. Haha, it's a little time loop joke. I'm joined by Angus Ronald, Stephanie Ben Dixon, and Peter Burns.
I was listening to Thunder.
Hello.
Oh, right, okay.
Hey there.
Good bit. Good audio bit without the cue for it.
I said I was waiting for the thunder. I didn't hear any thunder, so it's true. There
That's
it
fair.
is.
There you go.
And the August Back Pocket Game Club title was 12 Minutes, a game that we knocked over in the course of a week. A time loop murder mystery from developer Luis Antonio, starring the voice talents of James McAvoy, Daisy Ridley, and Willem Dafoe. And speaking of talents and time loops, I swear I've said this sometime before, but this Game Club episode is sponsored by Timothy Chu. Timothy is a self-described designer of worlds and builder of avatars, and I bet that he could figure out a world where I make it to the end of the day without impregnating my sister. So thank you, Timothy, for helping me avoid one of the worst possible timelines imaginable, and instead agreeing to just sponsor this episode.
God, I hope people know that's to do with the game.
Context.
That was heavy game joke. That was a heavy game joke there.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh.
Let's talk about 12 Minutes. So you play as Man, who I believe doesn't have a name.
No name.
No,
Yeah, I don't recall
I
ever
think so.
finding a name
no. And when you hover over your wife, she's called Wife.
until
So I feel like
the end of the
until
game
a
when she
certain
becomes
point.
her.
You're right. Should we? Maybe we should. Do we want to say man, husband? Do we want to call them James and Daisy? How do we? Do we want to agree on
James
something?
and Daisy's
think-
nice.
Yeah, I like that.
I think that's
Not true.
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Steph doesn't? It's okay.
What about bro
Well,
and sis?
Him,
A
her.
conversation I had with Peter earlier today, or maybe it was yesterday. I was like, "Gosh, it doesn't even sound like them." And he was like, "Yeah, like why would you go to all the trouble of like hiring these two big name actors with such distinctive voices and then
Let's
have them
totally
do?"
get that out of the way early, because yeah, I'm like, that is not my biggest gripe with the game, but I'm absolutely just so unimpressed with the voice acting from those two in this one. Not because it's a bad voice, but it's nothing like them. You've got like a
Yeah.
Scottish
It could-
actor and a British actor.
It could have been anyone. It could have been anyone.
Could have been
It could have been
anyone.
We're
anyone.
off.
And it could have been anyone. So we play as James, who, after a long day at the office, comes home to have a romantic, lovely dinner with his wife. I mean, it's less of a dinner and more of a dessert. She's got some news to share, however.
And it's less of a
she's
wife
just
and more of a
found out-
sister.
That's true. She's just found out that she's pregnant. But before you can truly enjoy that news, a character who identifies himself as a policeman bursts into your apartment, ties you both up, and accuses your wife of murdering her father, yells about wanting a pocket watch, and ultimately ends up murdering you both. And that's the least disturbing twist in this entire game, because when you die, you wake up at your front door and the whole evening unfolds again. I was lead on the game this month. Which I streamed over the course of a single day. I got to the twist, and then I was like, well, fuck, now I need to know what happened. So I came back at 10:30, pausing only to eat dinner with my family and try to understand what the fuck I was playing. So let's take a look at that adventure. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Back Pocket Game Club stream of 12 minutes.
What's the occasion?
I'll tell you over dessert.
Oh, then guess what? It's a good time for dessert.
I'm ready.
You ate a baby called Dahlia.
I don't know.
To the womb. Headbutt him. Oh my god. Oh, donuts are here. I want to combine knife with cop. No, she found us. God, the thump of the head is huge.
Sorry, I'm sorry. So sorry. So sorry.
Oh my god, these boys are so warm. They're such warm boys. They're such warm, sugary boys. Oh my goodness. Look at that. I'll tell you what. If I was eating this in the window while the cop was there, he'd find me in a heartbeat. Because of the noises.
What the?
Knife. Switch. Nope. I know it's awful and I'm not doing this deliberately, but I feel like I should kill her again. Oh god, there's so many different ways in which he kills her. That's awful. That is a huge pocket watch. That is enormous. That's the size of a hand. Okay, I'm gonna hop out. It was when he, Hi. Cop, unconscious. Oh my god, he's got so much shit. Alright.
I have a daughter.
He was alive. Maybe I should offer the bad guy some dessert.
He's about to grab some.
Maybe he's just, hangry.
Now we can go find your brother and move forward.
That forever.
I mean, we have to be the brother, right? What the fuck? I'm so the brother.
Best night ever.
I am so the brother. That would be so fucking silly. She's pregnant.
ready?
Oh my god, NJ Games.
I'm
So
ready.
incest. It causes time loops. That should be on the box for incest. Incest. It causes time loops. Made by Coca-Cola Amateur.
The name. Look at the name. Is that the nanny that he had the affair with? Oh, yes. Dahlia. That's it. Her name was Dahlia.
Oh, this is a real puke
She
moment.
was my mother.
Going back in time, going back in time. Time going back in time. Is the cop the dad? You are the brother and the murderer? The flower is the bumblebee, and the cop murdered the daisy. There's a lot to unpack here. This has been wild. Where we left this was exactly the reason that I love video games. It's the crazy Japanese games that I play, that everyone mocks me for. And now I've managed to get all of those people to do a game club episode about what is essentially one of those games. Nick has the crazy eyes, Nick has the incest eyes. There's a very specific difference. Oh, I'm gonna vomit. Oh. Why is Daisy Ridley attracted to IP that has some sort of brother-sister subplot? We've revealed the killer. The killer is me. We've revealed who the brother is. The brother is me. We know who the husband is. The husband is me. Don't kiss me. Oh god, it tastes so good. What? This didn't happen last time. This didn't happen last time. Oh my god. Are we gonna go back to the point of my conception? Hey, it's 2021.
You know what?
OnlyFans are
What?
shutting down. I think
What
people
if I
have
just tell the truth?
people are looking for new ways
No.
to express sexuality. And I got another bombshell for you. I love you as well, and I want to have your baby too. I want to have this entire family's babies. I'm guessing the end of this game is I need to not make love to my sister. And I don't know if I'm comfortable picking that ending, because who am I to say who can and can't love? Tell him your wife is your sister. Yes. It's getting to the point where I'm getting bored and frustrated by the incest subplot. And that's saying a lot.
Are you coming?
Well, I already did once, and we're gonna see how that turns out.
Hey,
Hey yourself. Hello.
Okay, we want to do the confession thing first, right? Oh, shit.
doors.
Well, we accidentally hit the ending.
Now I want you to imagine it changing, moving backward, returning to its bud.
Now, before I ask what you two are confused about, I will say that throughout the rest of this episode, there is a content warning that we are going to be talking about themes that relate to incest, domestic violence, child murder,
Cupboard
adult
hiding.
murder, cupboard hiding. Just a lot of really fucked up things, abuse of power. So if any of that is something that you are not comfortable with, I recommend probably skipping this Game Club episode and coming back for the next one, which I'm sure will be both a better game and a better thing to talk about. Stephanie, what was that confused face for?
I feel like this game just did not go through some play testing that it should have gone through to get to a point where that is the ending that they chose to tell in that specific way. And also that there were just like no content warnings for some of the stuff that's in there, which is kind of crazy. Although I will say that it never once occurred to me to kill my wife / sister ever. And then when Peter walked in, because he'd obviously played it before and I was playing it, and I was like, I think I'm stuck. Like, I've gone as far as I can go and I feel like I'm just going around in circles. I was like, can you give me a hint as to what to do next? And he was just like talking and he was just like, did you try killing her? And I was like, what? No. And he goes, it's the first thing I did. And it was clearly like, you did it a number of times. Did they say like 9 out of 10 domestic violence are always the husband?
Yeah. I did want to ask, on what loop did you first kill your wife, Pete?
No.
Mine, I think, was second or third. First loop, I drugged her and myself.
What?
So we both fell asleep very quickly.
Good.
Really?
And then
I think at one point I almost drank the thing myself and he was like, I shouldn't do that.
My guy just straight up did it. But I guess
really?
Right.
at that point I hadn't seen her pass out quickly from him.
Right.
So yeah, first loop I did that. Second loop I did like, let's have a dinner date, and actually saw it through to the end of a run. And then the third one I stabbed her.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Gus?
I think I was third. First loop was full lovely dinner. We danced. The guy turned up. He tied her up and beat me up, and that was like, okay, cool. This is how it's meant to play. Second one, I think I tried to stop him tying her up. I got beaten up, and then I was like, well, I have to get my frustration out somewhere, so I killed my wife.
Yeah, mine was second as well. It was literally the first thing I did in the second loop was just walk immediately to the knife.
Yeah, but then you did it two more times, and I only did it once, and I was like, that was distressing enough.
To be fair, like, I mean, it is an awful thing that we're talking about, but I do think that once the game gets to a certain point, and it does for me in all these kinds of games, that like I stop looking at people,
They're not characters,
and
they're
it's just
puzzle elements.
They're just like, I'm trying to find the key that goes into the lock, and it's like, okay, maybe the key needs to slit this lock's throat in order to work.
Jesus.
So let's go around the group first and just get like a temperature check on how we felt about this game, starting with Gus. What is your brief opinion of this video game?
Yeah, I think I'm mild to cold. I definitely enjoyed the first opening hour or two, and for what it set itself up to be. I think it very quickly started to, once it hit a point where the aforementioned twist happens and it becomes very sort of, I don't want to say story focused, but it does become just trying to work out backstory focused. It just falls away so quickly from the game that I thought I was expecting to play, which was setting up this kind of Rube Goldberg machine of time loop puzzling. And it was like, there's actually very little there that I enjoy, that was to like meat on the bone. It just very quickly turned into, as I said, this backstory stuff. And then it just, from that slope down, just even further drops, and like, the ending rushed its way into like right up on me, and then left me very unsatisfied. We'll talk about it as we go on, but I think I had to make about two in total, maybe 3 guide checks, or in this case I'd like check your stream to work out how to get around some really illogical leaps. And so yeah, overall I would say like pretty cold on it. Like which is, I'm colder because of how I came down from really enjoying the start of it we were all very excited to play this game. So I think, expectation was quite high, and so that has left me with a worse feeling than finding out it was my sister. So not great, not fantastic.
Peter Burns.
I'm a lot colder than Gus. I think it failed at everything it set out to do, and is one of the worst games I've ever played.
Wow.
And I'm not being hyperbolic. I think it is an absolute disgrace of a video game. For a game that has that much attention and is featuring in an Xbox showcase, it does not deserve the attention that it had. And I think it really only got it because it had the names Daisy Ridley, Willem Dafoe, and James McAvoy attached to it. And we only hear Willem Dafoe. So
yes. Yeah, right. Yeah. Steph, and
failed at that too.
You're the one who played it most recently. How do you feel about 12 minutes?
Yeah, so still processing. I think the feeling that I'm left with is just like disappointment and confusion, because I don't, like I was saying before, I don't understand how a game like that gets to that point, and nobody at any stage of the process is just like, this doesn't make sense. It's frustrating and annoying. It's like confusing and repetitive, and like is just problematic in the themes that it's presenting you with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand how it got through with all of that there. And I don't understand how they weren't watching people playing it who were going around in circles and getting frustrated like all of us were. And they were like, maybe we should change some things. It seems to me like maybe when people questioned the developers, they were too clear on their specific vision maybe, and just couldn't take, suggestions or advice on board. Mm-hmm. And then I'm just like, and also like when it ended, I was so confused. And I was sitting there with Peter and I was like, I don't understand. Is Willem Dafoe my father? Like, I don't understand.
Well, yes, but is Willem Dafoe as the father and the cop the same character?
Yes.
Was there did that tie together, or was that just a weird kind of double up? Voice acting.
Totally,
a budget restriction.
Yeah, and then I was so confused about why he didn't remember if it turned out that he was the brother, and then I was sort of like kind of coming to the realization of this weird kind of hypnosis thing that happened. But then was that all a dream, or was it like he just forgot a bunch of stuff and then is now remembering it because it had been suppressed in his mind and it was a magic watch? Or was the watch an illusion of something that was happening in his subconscious, of a reality that never actually happened but would have happened if he had pursued his sister?
Keep going, Steph. I want all the questions.
What?
The questions
all these questions are the reason why this is
these are all the questions.
It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
It's frustrating that those questions exist. You often have like a lot of questions at the end of a thriller or a kind of mystery kind of thing, but in an interesting way, in a way that the mystery.
A good story should leave you.
Gave you some threads and ideas that make it exciting to keep thinking about it. But this doesn't do any of that. You're questioning
genuinely enjoyed
the core of the piece as opposed to the threads of the piece.
I genuinely enjoyed the first half of the game. Like, it was going in such a great direction. I was even like, I was okay with the repetition I was doing at the start because I kind of accepted that was part of the process of playing through a time loop, and I was enjoying trying new things each time and excited by the prospect of unlocking some new step or learning a bit more information. And then it just took such a hard right turn into wacky land that I just was left going, hang on, did someone else like make the end of this game and just
totally.
like someone was writing a story and then folded over the piece of paper and then somebody else wrote it without seeing what was prior, like it was just.
I think that I agree, because I had a slightly different experience, I guess, because I streamed it, and I think that the shared experience of this game, and it was the day that it came out, so I hadn't seen like anything about the game, no sort of like, oh, it really goes places, whatever. And the first 90 minutes I really enjoyed. There were some mechanical hiccups, and it was a little bit like, even as I started playing it, I was like, oh, the movement of these characters doesn't feel very good. Like even just getting in and out of rooms can be difficult. Like, it just doesn't feel particularly intuitive, but whatever, I'll just go with it. It's like a tiny team. And the first 90 minutes I really, really liked, and then hit the sort of like twist, I guess. And as an audience, like streaming this, I think that it was so out, like you said, out of left field, that it was like exciting, I guess, that a game that is this big, or not this big, but like this anticipated, I suppose, goes for a swing that, while it's actually a swing that is played out quite often in media these days, I feel like the incest subplot has become more and more common.
Just quickly, Nick, I never found it as shocking as everyone's talking about. Like, as a piece of media, I thought, like, okay, it's an interesting way to go. Like, let's explore that in the sense of how does this affect the characters? And that's where the story for me totally just goes, no, we're not going to do any of that. We're just going to drop it. And then just start to get, as you said, wacky stuff, or just like things just start to unravel in a really, like, the narrative unravels, not the actual characters, in a cool way. And I was like, I want to see these characters struggle with all this horrible stuff, and it doesn't.
I was also disappointed by the fact that so much of the dialogue was like not well written and just repeated. I understand that you're kind of going through the same time loop and stuff, but little changes should affect the lines of dialogue, slightly, so that she's not always saying best day ever, or he's not always saying now we wait.
Well,
For my
It is,
sister.
that's totally true. That like, because I think let's see if we can break this discussion up of going
Yes.
everything before traveling back in time, and then we can deal with the like second half story stuff afterwards. Because everything before that is kind of like we could talk about mechanically the game, and I think that's a really good point. That like the first when those loops are shorter at the beginning, I found it enjoyable because I love this kind of game. I love time loop stories. I love these kind of like puzzle murder mystery, almost like escape room style things. But I think one of the keys, and while I did really enjoy it at the time, I think one of the keys to those things is like with a really good time loop narrative, the main character needs to be learning information that then changes the way in which they interact with the world. And in the game, it's like the player learned information of how you change the way you want to interact with the world, but the character, like James McAvoy's character, never seemed to change the way in which he interacted with anything. He kind of like he lived in this weird space where like and it was because there's only a certain amount of lines that they were recording, whatever, where he would reset to his normal sort of like, oh, thanks, baby. Like talking to her normally and stuff in the scenario when it's like, yeah, like that sort of stuff where like, it's like, wait, you're saying things when you know that she's about to be killed. Why are you talking to her now normally? Like everything is totally fine. Like, and that just, and the more that you have to do that, every loop where the sort of like the bones of how this thing is put together just become more and more obvious, and that became more and more disheartening to see. Oh, the game is not actually sort of like learning with me or doing anything cool with this. It's kind of like you just brute force your way through these loops trying to figure out the right, pills in jar, light switch on and off things.
Yeah, but they were it. They were kind of it. This is what I was saying before. I thought there would be so many more moving parts to this time loop room puzzle, as you said, Nick, like an escape room. And I was looking forward to that. I wanted to have to do different runs where I ran into the bathroom and climbed out the window, and then the cop comes in, and then she doesn't know I was home. And then like I wanted some real like puzzle elements in there that I had to work out, and I had to try different loops that weren't conversation based. I like the conversation element to the fact that these characters weren't just like never talking. But but as I said, I wanted to try different experiments to how the room worked. Like there was red herrings everywhere. There was like a radio you could turn on. There was a vent in your bedroom that did nothing. There was like all this stuff
all
everywhere.
The pictures on the walls and
pictures
like,
on walls
stuff.
And stuff. And I was like, cool, this is interesting. I turned the radio on so she comes out of the bathroom and turns that off. And then I lock the bathroom door and hide in the bedroom so she can't get back in the... Like, I thought there would be more of that. And I was really disappointed by the time that again, midway through, it decides to just leave that stuff behind and say, no, it's there's some terrible logic leaps in terms of how the puzzle progression works from halfway on.
And I think part of that is because like there's I agree with everything that everyone said. I think what he has here, the developer, and he built this mainly by himself. His name Louis Antonio. Louis Antonio. So like, one man job. He probably didn't playtested Steph. He was probably like done out. Annapurna publishing him, so I'm sure he had access to a lot of resources. But it feels like an ego project.
Yeah.
He's got this 90-minute like Trop Fest idea, and has a script for a film, but the gameplay floats that out to. For me, it was about 3 hours. Mm-hmm. Nick, you streamed for about 4 hours.
A lot of that was eating donuts.
But there's like a core like 90 minutes or even a little bit less of a story. And if that story was great, that's great. But I don't think it was. But the thing that gets really frustrating is that it bloats out because it's so unclear as to how to unlock that next story beat with how to interact with the puzzle pieces that you have, and they feel limited, that you have to repeat a lot of stuff because you're like, oh, I need to do that and then that, and I missed that. And it's where games like Zero Time Dilemma are so much more experienced at doing this loop thing, where they have
a bit of a
menu that has
mechanic?
They have a tree of all the branching options.
Flowchart. Yeah.
And you just jump into that node and go like, I want to jump into the node where my wife is asleep in bed and I've hidden in the closet.
I've done X, Y, and Z.
Because I've done it
and
once
I'm
before.
just
Yeah.
picking-
Yes, exactly.
Once
Yeah.
you do it,
Yeah.
you get that no. Oh,
And
yeah.
there's so like and that's the key. Like, yeah, I think that the nonary games, so like Zero Time Dilemma is a great shout for that. Outer Wilds, Sexy Brutale, Forgotten City, these are all time loop games that that recognize that you want to be replaying this stuff, but you don't want to be replaying things that don't teach you anything. You only want to be in the time loop learning new things the whole time. I wanted a dialogue skip option where you could just fast forward everything they were saying that wasn't just like every sentence needed to be clicked through. Something where you could, or I wanted a time skip. Like you have like, and you don't need
you
to
can
give it to me
only
straight
you can
away.
only fast forward the conversations that you're in as well. So you could never like, oh my gosh.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. And but like you it's like you don't need to
Steps
give
in
this
the
stuff
cupboard,
to
listening to
people.
the cop and the wife going, "Hurry up!"
Yeah.
It's so true that
Come
you don't
on.
you don't need to give it to people straight away, but like you have this like weird magic like in the game, this kind of like magic stopwatch pocket watch thing. Like once you find that, then maybe you could go, okay, now I can just fast forward and rewind time within a certain
Totally,
amount.
yeah,
So
you-
when the cop when you're hiding in the thing and you've drugged your wife and she's in bed and you're hiding in the cupboard and the cop walks in, you don't need to wait the sort of like 45 seconds for him to wander around the apartment. You can just go and he skips through. Like you said, like a save system that means you can just like rewind to it. It's just so annoying that it's like I would learn something. There were times in the playthrough, and I'm sure everyone did. I would learn something. I've got a 12-minute like it's a 12-minute cycle. I would learn something at like 9 minutes that I was like, oh, I need to make a choice between this thing and this thing, and then I make the wrong choice, and the cop punches me, and then it's like, fuck, I need to go through
all that.
another 9 minutes again, and I need
Totally.
to make
The amount of
I need
times
to tie
I-
him up and
I
shoot him in the leg and
Yeah.
select all the right dialogue options, and sometimes I forget which one that was, and it's like
I did a thing where I was stuck in that section where I was trying to figure out, like, how, you're just going back and forth, getting one more piece of information from this person, then you got to go back and talk to her, get one more piece of information from her, then go back and do the whole thing with him again. And sometimes I would forget to call the daughter to like have a chat to him before I said, let's wait for him together. Now we wait. And then I'll be like, oh crap, I didn't call the daughter yet. So I was like fumbling for the phone. Oh crap, I forgot to get it out of the closet. And then he walks in and I'm like, well, now I just have to wait for this whole bullshit thing to play out before I walk out the door and
You
start
just
all
walk
over
out,
again.
walk to the kitchen and get the knife. Don't mind me.
I like, yeah, I know, and that's like that's so funny that like you you achieve that Bill Murray Groundhog Day thing of like giving up on life.
Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
fuck this. I go and grab like multiple times instead of walking out of the bedroom out the front door. I just like had his pistol after these conversations and was just like, all right,
Oh, my turn.
boom, reset.
I
So then,
never
like-
once killed myself.
And the funny thing is that like the game does recognize at some points, like there is that thing where at the beginning you need to convince her that you're in a time loop, and you're like, it's the thunder and the radio and that sort of thing. But then once you've done enough, then the dialogue now becomes like you can convince her within like just one sentence. Like
Yeah.
it's the photo and the blah 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 and the killed your dad, and it's like you could just so the game's like. The
There it
developer
makes
has
sense to
recognized
help you,
that is just something that will help you in the scenario. It's just weird that that's really the only time that happens. I'm seeing in chat, like someone said, who was it? It's Jet. There's no way to skip Willem Dafoe's phone conversation. It's like, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like what that should be is that the door, you hear the elevator ding, and you should
He's
hear
saying,
him go
"Alright, bye-
at the
bye,
end
sweetie."
of the conversation. Yeah, like hanging up the phone or something, and not just waiting, like constant waiting. And even the fucking dialogue options that we're seeing here, some of them would be white and some of them would be grayed out, but then you would go into a white one and,
Wait,
and
some-
that implies like
some of
there's
them were
more
red and some were
information here.
orange as well. I didn't understand the color system.
I think when you've hovered over them, they're red, and when they're orange, if they're grayed out and you hover over them.
Yes, yeah. So if you're hovering over a grayed out one, it's orange, and if you go over a white one, it's red. But white implies that there's more here that
it's
you
a
haven't
new
asked.
thing, or that
And
Yes.
but then I would go into a white one, and there would be nothing new in it. Alternatively, I would go into a grayed out one, and by accident or something, or just to go like I was so frustrated, and it's like, okay, what the fuck's happening? And there would be a new dialogue option in there, and I'm like, so now I need to sometimes ask things that I've already asked, and then there are times when you ask something, and like the wife clams up and walks away from you and walks out the fucking door, and it's like, well, I don't want to risk that because I'm 6 minutes in here, and then there's other times where you ask something, you piss the wife off, and she's like, I can't believe you would say that to me, and then she sits down, she's like, I'm not talking to you, you've ruined tonight, and then and it was literally like I accused her of like killing her father or something, she's like, a couple of you would say that, blah, blah, blah. And then she gets all
Yeah.
frustrated, and I wander around the apartment, and I come back and I go, how'd your father die? And she goes, he had a heart attack. And it's like, wait, well, I just pissed you off because I accused you of his murder. Like, why are you talking to me now?
And also, like, so many times, like, at one point, I'd figured out the thing with the Polaroid on the fridge, and I'd been carrying that around with me for so long, trying to show it to him, and he's just like, it wasn't enough proof.
Is that when he
and
goes
I'd
to
given it
look
to
at it
him
on the
so
fridge?
many times.
Yep.
And then finally I'd had the conversation with her, and I figured it out that we needed to both kind of talk to him together about it. I was like, this time for sure. And so I
says,
had the
"Look on
Polaroid
the
and I was ready to
fridge."
go. Yeah, and she goes, look on the fridge. And I was like, oh no, I've got it here. And he walks over to the fridge and he's like, I don't see it. And I was like, excuse me, I've got it here, sir. And he's just like,
And this is like,
get out of my way. Poof. And I was like, come on.
Oh, that's brutal. Yeah.
Well,
I
yeah,
mean,
there's
that's
some serious, like, as I mentioned at the start, there's some puzzles that just, like, the logic leaps.
Sir.
The logic leaps you have to make really pissed me off, and there were a couple that I had to, like, hunt down a guy to work out what I was doing wrong. I think we'll obviously...
Can I ask, what was one of those examples? 'Cause
Sure, I was going to go through them, and then, like, we can obviously talk about the fact that then another issue to do with that is the idea of thinking you were doing the right way to finish a time loop, and it's setting you back, and then you suddenly losing any motivation to work out what my goal is in this game anymore, which I think that I found that very frustrating. Those actual, like, logic leaps that I had to, like, work out. And I still never actually got this one sorted, which was that calling the daughter the first time I called her, she tells you, lose my number and go away. And I'm like, hey, my wife is being accused of murder. She didn't do it. She tells me to go away straight away. I was like, okay, well, that's, as a gamer, that's a dead end. That doesn't go anywhere. I then did like an hour of gameplay trying so many different solutions of different things and different variations. And I was like, I'm at my wit's end. I don't know what it is. I checked your playthrough. You went into the bathroom and called the daughter again, and you say, hey, my wife is being accused of murder. You need to tell your dad. And she goes, okay, I'll help you. And you look surprised. You were like, what? That's weird. She didn't say that the first time. So I went into I didn't even go to the bathroom. I just called her again. And maybe I worked out some extra line that the man
the extra
says.
line. Yeah, it's that she doesn't like you immediately. It was something like this. Might not be it, but like if you just say your dad's about to murder my wife, she doesn't like you. But if you say your dad's going to come over here, I need you to tell him something for me, and then she's like, what is it? And then you go,
My wife
he's going to murder my wife. She listens to you. I did that in the bathroom because I didn't want my wife to hear that because she kept reacting weirdly, justifiably so, when she heard me talk.
Well, like that went totally over my head, even when I worked out the solution to recall her. Because again, as a game, it's kind of like I don't remember that extra bit of information. Like I kind of remember when it happened and how it happened. And yeah, as a sort of leap in logic, it just made no sense to me. And I was like, well, I would have just kept playing the wrong way for so long. And similarly with some other stuff that was conversation based, it was like it gets lost in all those menus, and you're just kind of like, I'm not sure if I've actually learnt anything from this loop at all. It's like I kind of just said it in a different order. The other one was shooting him in the leg. It's like I shot him so many times because a gun held over cop meant kill cop. He would shoot him in a really brutal way. And like the game has taught me gun over wife, gun over me. It's like that's how the game interacts. There's only one variation. Item does one thing over one object. And then just by happenstance, I think I dragged it down. It went over the leg. I was like, what? I'm like, that's a new thing that I hadn't seen. Maybe it happens with the handcuffs. You can see there's an extra interactable object there. But again, just the game's logic was flawed for me there because I was like, I hadn't made that leap, and it was just a coincidence that I got.
Yeah, and I feel like as well, there just needs to be a way that you can, once you've convinced her about the time loop, there needs to be a way that you can just hit button, convince her about the time loop, and you don't have to go through those ridiculous dialogue trees that are all grayed out, and you have to find out which was the right one that you did before because there's no thing that tells you.
Before it does that. It kind of does that.
It kind of does it, but I still felt like I needed to like.
It's still a process. It's still like it's still like it's like you're in phase 2 by the time you can go. I can just explain to you that I'm in a time loop because I know about your history, and then she sits down and then you make the phone call, and like that's in the phase where you're like, okay, now I can win over the cop. It's like that to me felt like a middle kind of phase.
Yeah.
And
of the
winning
game.
over the cop happens like that. Like after so
Yeah,
much
it's
of him being
ludicrous.
so
totally.
dismissive of you, like
It's
every time I try
insane.
to I say anything to him or show him the fucking picture or whatever, or say, excuse me, he's just like, not another word out of you. And then if you do anything else, he's like, bam. This time, you give him this one piece of information, he's like, oh, I'm so sorry.
And also, it's just such an
What a
unbelievable
predicament
character.
we're all in. Let's just hug.
This is a guy. He well, yeah, exactly. He kicks down your door to murder a woman who is pregnant and murder you, and he does that in the final 3 minutes of the starting loops. Right. He's motivated to do that.
He's intending to do this.
He
That's
has
like
come
why
here
he's
to kill
gone
you.
in there. Yes.
This is a psychopath, like on a vengeance mission.
Yeah.
And
then
who looks at a Polaroid on a fridge if you left it there, and then comes back and they're basically hugging straight away.
Yeah.
It was like it was a really personal
absurd.
contact moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's also like it's so frustrating because that's quick change is like I feel like I could have it's changed on this like weird phone, like his phone call from his daughter, which I think is just such a stupid thing to do.
Yeah.
When I see in the chat, full capsman says, worst example was trying to leave the baby clothes on every surface in the living room, hoping the wife and cop would notice while discussing the nanny. It took so long to realize the cop would only pay attention if he was tied up and stabbed first. I was exactly the same. I was trying to show that. The same with the watch. I took the watch out of the vent and put it on the table, and then the cop searches the room and walks past the watch, and I'm like, I set it there so you wouldn't fucking come and that's the thing that I think that the smaller the play space in a game like this, the more that I expect everything in this play space is
to matter,
is manipulable. Like everything has a consequence, and I think that that's the thing of like putting the thing that the cop broke in to steal. I could have sat it on the floor at the front door, and he could have stepped on it and still not have noticed. And I'm like, what's the point in making this like intimate little game that I can't?
And even
that
if
I
that
only
leads
need to just experience exactly what you want me to.
Even
do.
if that leads to a failed loop, I think you're right there, Nick, in the sense that it's like you've got such a condensed space and you've got not that many variables in there, and like therefore I would have liked this game to have stretched the bounds to be like there's an ending where he comes in and sees the watch on the table and grabs it and something happens and it's like, cool, I can't progress the actual what my goals here, but that leads to some kind of resolve in some way or another. I thought there would be these multiple endings. Bringing up the watch as well, that was the other one that Nick that was my other logic leap of saying I've done everything here, and the realization that I just had to stare at the watch for a while.
Yeah.
Like,
Jaw Drop is asking about the flower pot on the dresser. Peter, you said you
Oh yeah, I never
figured
found
out
a use for that.
the situation with the flower pot.
Yeah, I went back. That was after I finished the game. I did I found a couple of finishes and then was like, because I have the Xbox up on my phone, the achievements were popping up, and I was like, I'll check out the description of it, because I was like, what is this person trying to say? And I saw that there were only 12 achievements, and I was like, I'm going to get them all and see what they mean. The flower one was not particularly interesting. You fill the cup with water, you go in and you water the flowers every loop, and they start to grow. But it only grows into a green plant, and the first thing you notice when you get out of the lift on that very first loop is there's paintings on the walls left and right of you. On the left is a bookshelf with a single red book.
Red book. I saw that.
And on the right is
the meditation book.
Painting of this same pot of flowers with 3 flowers on it. And those 3 flowers, turns out, align with the 3 non-true endings.
Yeah.
3 of the non-true endings.
Yeah, right, okay.
And so when you complete each of those and you keep watering the plant, that ends up flowering those 3 things to indicate. It was kind of just a progress tracker. It was kind of meaningless as a...
in-jokey clever then.
Yes.
Before we should move on to the story stuff. I did just want to shout out some things that we saw in the Discord, people talking about this. The first one was Axiton, who said, on one hand, the characters do feel really reactive and real, which makes it all the more jarring when you can't do simple things like ask her to hide with you or pretend to be asleep so we could interrogate the cop together, and why you can't just threaten to shoot or stab someone to get information out of them. Also, the only way I could figure out how to drug the wife was to prepare dessert and put the drugged water water down in front of her chair, which is really weird because she'd watch me put the drugs in the water and comment on them, but still drink it during dessert,
wow.
get really sleepy, and not connect that maybe I was trying to roofie her.
Yeah.
That's a weird way to do it, because I assume everyone did it the way, which was do it in the bathroom, come out and give her the water.
Yeah, I just did it in the bathroom and hand her a
Oh
glass
no,
of
I
water.
tried the over dinner first as well, because I went through that first loop of us sitting down to dinner. I was like, oh, this is naturally where I drug her, but I didn't. I put the cups down on the table, and then she picked them up again and went to the sink to like fill them up again, and then she put them down, and then I had the drink with the pills in it. So I was like,
Oh no,
she did the old switcheroo.
And you had this one. For me, I was able to
never
do
trust
it.
anyone who wants to swap
the-
drinks as well.
yeah, yeah.
I was doing it kind of right at the start,
Inconceivable.
where I would just like march in, grab the phone, ignore the hug, rude,
Yep.
and then go and get the medicine pills, go and get a cup, fill it with water. Actually, you could grab a cup on the right as you walked in, and
It's
then
right on the table. Yeah.
and you can put it back on the little table that is like next to the front door where she's sitting and reading, and she'll just go,
Yeah.
"Oh, thank you." So that's
Yeah.
what I was doing.
I just
but
walked
did,
out of the bathroom with a cup of water and handed it
I
to
always
her.
took-
I
always
And
grabbed
she would
both
just
cups.
go, oh, thanks.
I
Yeah,
grabbed
yeah.
both cups, so I'd always catch her going, "Where are all the cups?" And I'd be like,
Yeah, where
"Here
are
you
the
go."
glasses? Yeah.
Sorry, Pete.
the most absurd thing in the entire game, though, is the fact that you sit down to dinner and you get 2 tea mugs of water and put them
I
on
know.
the table.
And she
water.
specifically
It's
says,
like
where are
bizarre.
all the glasses? And you don't have any. You just
It's
have
like-
2 mugs.
It's
No,
the
it's a weird
You're in
apartment.
a
Like
small
where
it's a
New York
candlelit
apartment. They
it's a
only have
candlelit
2
little
bowls,
table.
2
It's like
cups.
get some
Yeah.
wine.
Get some
You
TV,
just get
yeah.
dessert.
Totally.
Get something.
But also it was like because he had mentioned that he had dinner at work or something, and that's
Yeah.
why they were just having dessert. But
Yeah.
it is like, where's the TV? Where's your laptop? Like it's,
Yeah,
at
yeah.
first I thought it was set in the past until there was a
Yeah.
mobile phone, and then I'm like, oh no, like what the fuck? Where are you guys living? Anyway,
Yeah.
Jules J also mentioned, and I think this is so spot on. I really do think that the people who play this game are going to be divided into those that thought to flick the faulty light switch 2 times, and those that didn't even have that occur to them and just gave up on the game entirely. Consider me in the latter camp. And I think that's a really good example of like, if you don't get that, you just don't get. I don't think there's any way to progress.
How do you
I think that's
incapacitate
like,
him?
That's a hard pass of like,
Yeah, and
you cannot
I
sneak up on that motherfucker.
I got that by accident, like purely by
right.
accident. The first time he came in, he flicked the switch and passed out, and I was like, why did that happen? And then I realized that every time she was going in there, she was going ow, and then it was just a fluke that I got that. It didn't occur to me to
Does
do
she
that.
turn the light
on
off
my
if
own.
she goes in? If you turn it on and zap yourself and then
Yeah.
leave the light on, when she goes into sleep, does she turn the light off?
She does.
Okay, cool. That's a helpful step. Yeah, because I think I that's what I did. I only turned it on once, got zapped, didn't realize what had happened, roofied my
Yeah.
wife, and then I wouldn't have gone, oh, turn it off now, so the next person gets zapped. That was
Yeah.
that's at least a bit helpful to game lead to in that way.
Yes.
And also, like, there are a couple of cues that are actually good puzzle cues, and one of them is the fact that in a standard run, she'll leave the bathroom, pretty quickly go to the bedroom after saying hello to you at some point, and flick
Yeah.
that light on and go,
And go,
ow,
ow.
we
Yeah.
need to call
Yeah.
the electrician. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, that's a puzzle element. And,
Yeah.
There's
like
there's an
mentioning
interaction. Yeah.
mentioning like frequently, oh, I didn't think it would rain. It's like, oh, there's not usually thunderstorms and stuff. It's like, okay, there's a few clever cues.
I
only
think,
a few,
but I
though,
think
few
it
and
was
far between.
really front loaded for the first 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I think it was
Yeah.
really front loaded to like get you to convince her of the time loop, and then after that, it was really like fucking try, which is almost the worst time to stop giving hints.
Yeah.
It's like when you're now 6 minutes into a run and you're like, well, I don't really know what to do.
I wonder
But
if that is
talk about-
based off the fact that this is a game developed by one person that was like a proof of concept that people latched onto. When I was looking up images and stuff, there was so many of like the early beta builds of what that he was making, and it's like in that sense, I can see making this little playground to play in, and then going, okay, what's the longest story? And going, I don't know. It's like let's.
But but the interesting thing is, I've
Was
done
the
some
story
reading
there
and
from the
listened to some
start?
podcasts. Yeah, people played this game like 6 years ago, and it was still like everything was nearly identical.
Okay,
so it's
yeah,
like
there we
I
go.
don't know
Yeah.
what like to the point of like light switch flickers and that sort of thing. Like of going. Is it six? Like the rest of it was just like polishing what was there. But
Yeah.
I don't even know. But
And
we
just
should
the-
now move on.
the
go,
watch
Gus.
thing. I didn't get an answer out of you guys. How did you know to stare at the watch for a long time? Like, also to not have a cue when he looks at it, going, "This feels weird" or something. Like,
I think
What do you mean?
I initially
The music
stopped.
to go back in time. You
To
mean?
go back in time.
I initially I initially clicked out of it as well, and then I was like, "Hang on, everything about this game has taught me that I need to wait and see what the thing is
Sure.
going to do." And so I literally went back in because I was like, "It's so this game to make me stare at this until something changes," and that
Yeah,
was the only
okay,
thing
right.
that taught me to do
The
it.
music sort of swelled and cued as well. And it took me a
Yeah.
while. I was sitting, like, we were all trying to figure out what it was, and it was like setting the watch to. I set it to 12 minutes, to 10 minutes, to 12, and then it was 2 to 12 was finally when something happened, because that's like the music peaks then. But
But that's later, right? That's not the first time you look at the watch. It ticks.
oh no, that's when that's when you find the watch and you can manipulate the arms.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah,
that's
that's
the
up.
first
is
time
that
you
not what you were talking about?
Well, all I did was
The first time you look at it, it's ticking normally.
Yeah. And I did that, and I stared at it. I was like, "Is anything going to happen for ages?" And then, obviously, at some point, when you look at it, I didn't set that time, Nick. I just stared at it for a long time, and eventually, the music starts swelling, and I go invisible, and then I would go into that flashback.
No, you're skipping ahead of yourself, because that doesn't go backwards in time until you've met Dad.
Yeah.
It only goes forward in time. It doesn't do anything until after that.
So when do you meet Dad?
When
it's the Dahlia
as soon as you find
thing.
out the Dahlia thing, and you get sick, and then you go loopy.
Sorry, yes. Then you meet Dad, and then for me, I was like, well, the logic leap there was not to look at the watch again because I'd exhausted that.
Right,
option.
okay.
That was
Yeah,
my
right, okay.
other irritating
Okay,
point. And
yeah,
I was
okay.
like, yeah,
Sure.
okay.
So then
Sorry, Nick.
we meet Dad. So then, like, we've been frustrated with the game mechanically up until that point, and then it's sort of like we take this hard pivot where you find out that you're the brother. And I think that my reaction to this was like there was a level of excitement because I was like, even though it's a slightly played out trope, it is rare for like I said, a hyped up game to sort of take a big story swing like this, of actually going like, oh no, here's a real, like, this is a genuine twist, and this is the kind of stuff that you see a lot, and I would say way better done in those sort of like Zero Time Dilemmas, Danganronpas, these sort of games where it's like, no, these story twists are what you're there for. I think that my issue with this twist of the brother and the daughter and the child and the dad and the cop dad and everything was that, like you, it was all very confusing. I do have a theory as to what was actually happening and why the cop was the dad and everything.
I'd love to hear it.
But ultimately, I think that I was like, I don't know what this adds up to. I finished the game and I was like, what were you trying to say? And I don't understand. Like, and so to use this thing, which is pretty horrific, the idea of like you falling in love with your half sister, impregnating, like getting, or not impregnating her feels kind of malicious, but like, I guess like you two having a baby together, the constant murder that goes on, the violence that goes on, and for it to be like, this character's like, oh, I forgot that you were my sister, and then I'm like, well, what, like at the end of this, are you trying to tell me that love is love and everything, we should just accept this, or that
therapy is bad?
I didn't fucking understand. I walked away from this. I was like, I don't know what was the moral of this, other than just watching people's lives fall apart in front of me and finish the fucking game.
I didn't even get to the morals because I was, as you said, I was so hung up on trying to decipher how to decrypt the meeting the dad the first time and going, well, hang on, surely. Like, again, the timeline of it boggles me in terms of
I was
what's
like,
happening
at one point in my head, I was like, did they not have enough money to hire another voice actor to play the father? And so they just were, they would just like,
and I was like, and I was saying to chat, like when I was doing it, I was like, so were they just trying to save money? If that was the case, why not make James McAvoy do two voices? Because he's already doing a fucking accent, so just make him English. And Willem Dafoe can't do an accent. It's impossible for him to sound any different. So like, I'm sitting there going, what is going on here? And I was getting, and it was one of those things where it wasn't like, oh, what's happening? It was like, wait, what's happening? And it's distracting. It's like, oh, it's taken me out of the story. And so now I'm not actually invested in what's going on. I'm trying to figure out what I'm looking at, as opposed to going, where is this going? I'm going like, how did we get here?
So do we have a clear path, or like at least if we try and break down what we think the initial narrative is of this person being born into that family and then never existing. Like, what happened from birth till this point? Like, were these people separated? Did they live and then like just meet back up unintentionally when he tried to find the father and then fell in love with her? Like, there's so much of that stuff that was substance.
I don't read it as being unintentional, but yes, for the most part, I think that this stepbrother, the character that you play, James.
Half-brother, but yeah.
The half-brother,
Half-brother, yeah.
half-brother, was basically stalking the other side of his family and had an infatuation with his sister because he is described as monster. I think that this person is like a sicko, and that's how he comes to this part in the game where the dad's like,
so he
you're my son,
the father.
but he confronts the father confronts his son
him,
and says,
yeah.
I know that you're like in love with your sister.
Your sister.
Yeah.
my daughter.
Let's look at what that life would be like.
Who has
Yeah,
fled to the city after thinking she killed him.
Yes.
I'm just playing this all out. So yeah.
But yeah, who's fled to the city after? Has any of that happened? I don't necessarily think that even that happened.
Yes.
I think that that scene in the room just here is kind of like maybe the last real moment in the game, and even the shooting isn't necessarily real. And the father has sat this man down and said, you need to leave my daughter alone, and I'm going to try and help you because I'm a therapist.
So my theory is that, and the funny thing is, I was like, okay, what happened in this game? I went and did a lot of reading, a lot of watching videos. Almost never saw the same theory twice. And it's less theories of it. I don't think they're theories. I think it's like people going, I think this is what happened, as opposed to this is what it could be. It's like, no, I think this is what it is because I'm confused. But I think that 98% of the game never happened.
Yeah.
And the only
that's where I landed too.
The only thing that's real is the son and the dad having the conversation, and the dad is trying to give him basically therapy to talk him out of having a relationship with his sister, and that it's and that the things like the cop bursting in and killing him and stuff are this like is basically his psyche
trying to stop
like
this
rejecting
bad situation.
this thing. Yes,
right.
and that and the reason he's in this loop is it's like you keep being in this loop because you
there is
keep
no good
trying.
Answer, there's no resolve out of this.
Yeah, you keep trying to solve the problem of the cop coming in and killing you when the actual
the real problem
is
is
she's your sister.
She's your sister, yeah.
So and that's why you can't stop this, which I think is actually another massive flaw with the game, is that for most of the game at least I did not understand what my objective was. So I didn't know what I was ever working towards. I knew I only knew in the broader sense, which was stop this loop from happening. But I was like, okay, do I stop it from happening by saving everybody? Like, does everyone need to be alive or killing the cop? Because killing the cop fixes this loop. Why?
That first moment when I had the three of us have the conversation and we convince him that she's innocent and we do it all right. Yeah. And Peter was standing there because he was watching me play it. And I was like, I did it. And then he just like leaves, and then the loop starts again, and I'm like, "What?" And Peter goes, "Pow!"
But that is like one of the most unsatisfying
now what am I supposed to do
in a video game? It wasn't even a way of going, "Oh, what did I do wrong?" It was like, "Oh, for fuck's sake!" It really like maybe that was the point of the game design to make you feel stuck in that loop, but it doesn't even. And
I get that wasn't supposed to be the ending. I didn't expect that to be the ending, but for the loop to start over again was me just being like, well, what?
and dangle a thread of where to kind of go next, and I didn't need a game. I just knew, but I needed I'm just gonna have
something
more to go.
The same conversations again, is what I was like. The first thing I did, I was like, is there going to be another fucking dialogue tree that's opened up now that I have to find?
Or he's, I guess, out of monologue. He's talking a couple of times, and they were my favorite bits when he would get. The loop would reset and he would have a different line occasionally, at
the top
of
it.
Those little bits where he's like getting used to that now, or what a dickhead, but they were nothing. They were throwaway lines. I feel like there was a.
Tell you what he didn't get used to. shooting himself in the head.
Okay.
But he did get better at it. He was more
But
efficient.
I thought that was a possible, mechanic to use to have him maybe not whisper to himself, "I wonder if this thing," and he does it a couple of times, like, "I need to get her to tell me where the watch is." But it's such a loose mechanic that they don't really rely on, and then he doesn't fall back on it when you need him later on to really help you or like guide you in a direction, which made me just feel so directionless. And I was like, that's where I nearly dropped it entirely. I was like, this is stupid. This is a nice feeling.
So what was the first ending that you guys got?
I was just going to say, by the time I got an ending at all, I loathed the character that I was playing.
Yes,
I was like,
100%.
I am playing a horrid villain, and all the paths are trying to lead me to his happiness, and I don't like any of it.
And I think that's totally true because, Steph, to your point and to Pete's point, the game also, it's like the developer doesn't. What I'm about to say will sound like I'm casting dispersions on him, and I'm not trying to. But it almost is like he is pro this incest relationship, the developer, because it's like he doesn't understand. The game doesn't understand. Once this piece of information drops, it recontextualizes everything about the story for you. So now anything moving forward has this cloud over it of going, this thing is there. And what, for me, the first ending I got was the I don't even remember what it was, but I know what I didn't get, and that was the
you coward.
Was it coward? Did you get coward? Yeah,
Well,
I got coward. I gave him the watch. I said, "I'll help you." I drugged my wife. I said, "Please leave," and it was like, "You're a coward." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
But
least resistance.
But the fact that you can get the reveal of the incest subplot, and then from that moment on, it was kind of like looking at the wife character. All I felt before that, she was just this like puzzle piece in this puzzle box. Anything moving forward, I was just so horrified for her on
me too.
on the game's behalf. I was just like, oh my god, like you are just this pawn in this horrific, like basically rape scenario over and over again.
It's like she exists only to be like drugged and like have sex with.
And then because the second ending I got was like a perfect day, which was sitting down and having a meal and dancing and getting the reveal about the child. And so I'm like, wait, but I already know that you're my sister and this is my nephew or niece and son or daughter. And so therefore the idea that the game is now going, you had this perfect day. I'm like, no, I didn't, because it's my fucking sister, and she and I know this, and the character is not telling her that. So, and that was like 95% of the rest of the game was the character never telling the wife that any of this information, and every ending seemed to be a part of, well, maybe you could just not tell her, or maybe you could like continue with this relationship and actually it's fine. Tell her and it is fine, or don't tell her.
To do all of that without painting it in the theory that you've talked about before of it, like this being his psyche, and it's in the therapy session, and these are all manifestations of his psyche trying to reject this situation. That all works really quite well, but in the sense that in those other scenarios that you played out, Nick, you need to paint him more and more as the villain, because, well, not as the villain, but like I want to start seeing this character unravel and see that he is a bad person. And
you never get to see that journey. I think when I first got that information, I was so confused that in my brain it wasn't connecting. Like I didn't believe what I had heard, because I was like, that is not the person that I have been playing this whole game. And as a twist, I'm not being presented with a scenario that is like driving that point home, apart from them being like, oh my God, or whatever. Like I needed to see like more kind of confrontation and working through of what that meant. And I never really saw that. And so it was just this weird giant piece of information that was just pure shock value, like for a twist for the sake of the twist, like on fucking Passions or Bold and the Beautiful or something. She comes back from the dead.
Out was as a psychopath, like realizing, no, I'm suppressing this. And, like I wanted to see him crack and go, oh my God, I'm the bad guy.
I needed all that. Like I needed him to confront her and them have a conversation about it, and I needed to know how she felt and all this kind of stuff, and you never get any of that.
Totally, and that's it's so strange that stuff wasn't there, because I'm like, then why did you put this in there? And unless it was just for shock value, like you said, because like you put in this thing, the twist you put in is one that, as that character, like every element of the twist actually impacts the wife more than it impacts the husband. Like it turns out she didn't kill her father, which she thought she did. It turns out that the man that she loves is actually her brother, who is also kind of like responsible for the death of her mother, in like tangentially, and that the child that she's about to have is a child of incest. So it's like everything about it is something that is awful for her, and your character just like never has a decent conversation with her other than I'm your brother, and then immediately afterwards calls her babe. And it's like I just don't understand. Like it's like it was like watching a game designer. The game designer, it was like watching a kid play with dynamite or something. Of like, oh, I picked this thing up and let's just see what happens, but I don't really understand it.
It's a good analogy.
Just like it's so obvious in the second half of the game that like you don't know what you're trying to say. You don't know. But you just know you want to say it in the most shocking, confronting way possible.
If I am in the head of a sociopath, like I want the game to reflect that as I push further and deeper and things get weirder and weirder. But it's like that's what I
not
thought.
Just I forgot that you were my sister.
So that's what I thought. This stuff that we're seeing right now was going to start leading to, and then the rug just gets pulled out from under you. Like an ending for me felt so ungratifying because it was like. I said, I don't want to be with her. And he goes, okay. And it was like ending there. I was like, ugh, like this is where as I said, I wanted my main character to start being super conflicted. And that's when the red starts to show and you go like, okay, I'm not who I thought I was. And the game instead chooses to give you these kind of weird, skewed endings. Well, if you want to call those ones endings beyond there, which that's when I checked out entirely. And I watched Nick, you play through. Do we talk about like how that goes in the final act?
Well, like there are multiple endings. There's a version where you say in this. I think there's actually the true ending is the ending in which James breaks free of the like illusions that he's casting. This idea of the apartment and his sister, this relationship that doesn't actually exist. These people, this apartment life doesn't exist, but.
Yeah. The relationship exists, but it's not the way that we see it.
Yes, yeah. So, the true ending is that and it's interesting here that I'm seeing hair on this character because I think it glitched for me, and I never saw hair on the dad.
Really?
It was the cop model. It was just the cop.
Oh, that's so confusing.
Well, sometimes I got
is
cop in this room. Sometimes it's cop in the room, which is
never got dad in this room.
It's like modern day.
Yeah, okay.
But, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that like the ending is the true ending is you've talked about the book. You agree that the that hypnosis works, and you allow him to wake you up basically. And this whole time you've been asleep, and you've been fighting for this relationship in your mind. And that's what these time loops are. This fight for this relationship that you so desperately want. And the only way to properly give it up is to wake up from the hypnosis that your father / the cop is performing on you in that room for that therapy.
So saying no and walking away, which is what I did the first time, and going to the empty apartment, that's still
still an illusion. That's him imagining what his life is like without,
and it's literally nothing.
Sister.
So that's him still being twisted, saying if I don't have this relationship, I will have nothing in my life.
I've got an empty house. Yeah.
So right, and then going back, and this is where I never did this, and Nick, you did it, Pete. The true ending, I don't know, Steph. It's like you need to then quote the book.
Yeah, which is on the shelf behind you, and then you have to look at the clock. It's all so obscure.
But it's to be able to get that ending, it's like you have to time the book sort of moment really carefully, and that is by allowing the cop to talk for a certain period of time before you bring up the next thing.
Which is so...
Because that's the first time you can choose dialogue while audio is running under it and not leaving you an out,
yes.
isn't it?
Yeah. And I fucked that up because I was like waiting for it to finish. But I do think the one thing that I divert with Pete's theory is that I think the man has only just found out that it's his sister. So I think that it's not like he's been stalking her
8 years ago, or
so no, now that he
has gotten his sister pregnant.
No,
I don't think
he hasn't done that
extra
year. He hasn't done that bit. It's that he's
either in a relationship or he's just met her and has started a relationship, but he didn't know it was his sister, and the cop and the dad is now breaking it to him, and that's why he's going through this thing of going like, okay, how can I, like, is there a world where I can make this work? And that's what
and
all
that's
the
back
loops are.
here.
Yeah.
Because in
well,
my
no,
in
for
my
me,
mind,
I
this is
think
8 years ago.
Yeah, this is 8 years ago. So I
Yep.
think it's bald because I sometimes got hair and I sometimes
I got
bald
bald
cop.
the first
And
time
so-
in this one, yeah.
Yeah, and so I think it's the daytime scenes where he's bald is the only like real thing that we're watching. But,
Right.
Because
but
to
it's
me,
still-
because to
it's
me that
still
is
so confusing.
because to me then they have been in a relationship. Maybe she's not
Yes,
pregnant yet, but they've been dating for 8
They've been
years.
dating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Since
he's like,
New
I want
Year's.
to continue.
And this is
He
why
loves me,
he's
I
had
love-
to
And the cop
intervene.
is a character.
Yeah.
Yeah, potentially. But yeah, potentially they have been dating for 8 years. But and I do think that this is one of those things of going that the part of the problem of at this point not being able to have the flow chart like in your zero time dilemmas or a rewind or something is that you need to keep going through all this shit that you already know to get to this part at the end where your brain is still trying to figure out what's happening. So every time you think you grok it, you have to, and you make a mistake or you get an ending, you now need to go through all this talk and making all these other decisions that I would kind of like lose track of what I had kind of started to piece together. And then I would get to the end and I was like, okay, now what did I do last time in this scenario? And that's just really poor game design. Like at this point where revelations are happening, they should be cascading on one another, and you should be learning more and more at a faster and faster pace, not
setting you
less
back
and
by
less.
making you do the busy work and then giving you a chance for this stuff to literally fall out of your brain
And I
again
think
and
that,
go,
totally. And when we were talking about the Forgotten City a few weeks ago, I described it in the way that I did, which was like, I love these games where the power you get is knowledge. Like the only thing that you don't gain skill, you just gain knowledge. And in those games, it is always you learn a lot at the beginning because everything is new, and then you start to slowly piece things together, and then at the end of the game you learn a lot again because you have triggered everything, and it's the game is now going, here's your reward for like putting this together. It's like at the end of a puzzle where you start going, oh, I see what this actually is. Oh, it's a donkey. And it's like this game forgot that second part and just no, you need to slog through this over and over to a shit ending every time.
But I feel like we should clarify that when you say knowledge, we're not. I at least think that's not opening unlockable lines in a dialogue tree, because for me that is the same as getting items. The knowledge you're talking about is literally in your brain that you can apply to conversations that are simplified or that repeat themselves. Not like, oh, I didn't say it in the right order. That's because. And then, therefore, I don't get the option to say this new line, because that is just that same rote learning of like, I have to do it the same way every time. And I completely agree. Being able to use the proper knowledge you have and then expand the next loop properly versus going, you failed a step, you stepped outside of the line, do it all again. It's like, that's just punishing when it's,
And I think like a couple of people in chat have kind of defended the idea that, kind of have taken the idea that because none of this has happened, none of it matters. But this is the game that is presented to us. This is the story that is presented to us.
This is the experience that we're having.
Yeah,
I feel like
for
developed
90% of your time.
Yeah. I think then it matters, you know.
Oh, totally. And also, you can't just then ignore the story that was being told to you before the twist at the end.
Yeah,
it is an ineffective piece of storytelling and a gross and obtuse piece of storytelling up until the point where it just gets even more obtuse and is just a wank. It's just someone had an idea and no one
curtailed
sat down in front of it and went like, this doesn't actually make sense, dude. You should try this and this and this.
No.
Yeah.
It's
no editor.
It's you have a twist. You don't have an idea.
You have a twist.
You don't have a story. You have a twist.
Totally.
And that's so disappointing. I can't remember the last time I've been this sort of like disappointed with a game because I had such high, I guess, expectations, but I was so excited for it. I didn't necessarily think it would be incredible. I hoped it would be, but like I was so excited for this, and I was like, God, it just really dropped the ball in every conceivable way. I will say I got a long text message from Raj, who did actually enjoy it, which further emphasizes the point that he is the devil. But he didn't mind he was like, yeah, it was a bit clunky controls. The Willem Dafoe was fantastic. The conversation skip was annoying, and he wished he he could have jumped halfway through the game, but he liked the fact that it wasn't a perfect game, but it held his attention for more than 5 seconds. Let's move on now, though, to our competition. Because unless anyone else has anything they want to add,
I guess the last thing I wanted to quickly say is that I've really enjoyed this conversation because I checked
more
out
than the game.
More than the game. And I checked out and hadn't made that leap into the idea. I didn't get the therapy ending, so I didn't kind of pontificate more about the idea that this is... I speculated for a bit that I'm like, this is kind of in his head. Is it, isn't it? But like, I think that really does drill it home to be like, no, I like that theory that you presented, Nick, and that has made me feel a little bit better about the game in the sense that I'm like, I like that. But I feel a massive missed opportunity for the game to not do more with the idea of if this is in his mind state, fuck with it. Do crazy things. You've got that room. Don't just empty it at the end and go, oh, that's him interpreting being alone. Like, have versions where he starts talking to you, or the room things play out a little bit differently this loop.
Yeah, the cop walks out the door at the start.
He spirals out of control.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or
Different
the
items
door
start to
gets-
appear. Yeah.
The door gets kicked down and the baby is there.
The door's not there.
Yeah.
The
That's a
door
Resident Evil
out
game.
Isn't, like, do a loop where the door to go back out into the hallway isn't there, so
Totally.
you have to kill yourself. Like, it's a video game. Fucking play with it, like, in that
Yeah.
sense. And maybe it's not going to fix your story, but it's definitely going to make for, I think, a more engaging product. And I think that's where I'm super disappointed with that.
Yeah.
So that was my final point about that. But yeah.
But like the takeaway, I've been thinking about it for so long of like what was the point of the story that he was trying to tell, and what I landed on is don't do incest, but maybe it's okay. And that's
but if
like
you're
I'm
into
like
it,
that's what the story. Yeah,
Maybe
Don't
it's
do
a
incest,
perfect
but
day.
if you're into it,
yeah, that's like if you're into it, just don't tell her that you're related, and then it's not. It's fine. It's just rape. It's not incest and rape. It's just fucking ridiculous.
Competition time.
Let's move on to the competition because we did want to give away some prizes. As usual, we run a competition where you get a mug, a copy of the Back Pocket Game Club notebook, and also a copy of next month's Game Club game. At the moment, the notebooks and the mugs are being held in limbo until we can actually get back to the studio and send them out, but the games do get sent pretty much straight away. We got tons of entries for this competition. The competition was, if you had to convince someone that you were living in a time loop, how would you prove it to them? So I think we've got the most amount of good entries to this competition than any we've had.
Yeah.
And it was very hard to narrow it down, but we've got 3 runners-up and a winner. So, Gus, can you start us off with the first runner-up?
Sure thing. The first runner-up is Chaotic89, who says, I wouldn't. I would perform endless pranks on people until I got bored, and then nap in every cycle until I've caught up on the 6 years of sleep that my children have robbed from me. Nick, I'm sure you can relate to that one. And my sister and brother-in-law, oh God, it feels dirty even mentioning them in this stream, have 2 kids.
I'm glad you added in law.
I've had no sleep, and so I think they would appreciate this as well.
I legit on the couch tonight before we came down here, like I was lying there with my partner, I fell asleep on the couch as she was talking, and then I woke up and I cried a little bit. I'm so tired right now. So that's where I'm at.
And she went drink, and you were like, I'm still tired. Why do we keep getting tired?
Stephanie Ben Dixon, runner-up number 2.
Oh my gosh, this one was amazing. From Nano Jeans. I thought this was just so great. Nano Jeans said, my partner and I actually have an existing mutual agreement that if we simply say I'm in a time loop, followed by very specific instructions, no questions are asked, we just do it. Similarly, we have a doppelganger passphrase.
That is incredible.
Does that mean if you turn up with a goatee, you have to be like, say the passphrase? Are you an evil doppelganger because of that like dirty goatee? And they're like, no, I just grew a goatee. I'm
so good. I wonder if the very specific instructions are like anything, like you go, I'm in a time loop. I need you to take the car and drive to the nearest wall.
A guy is going to come here, and at some point you're going to discover that we are related. Just ignore it. It's fine.
Just ignore it. It's fine. Just ignore it.
Bought you a lotto ticket.
Peter, runner-up number 3.
And the achievement's called Blissful Ignorance. That's what that ending is called.
What? Yes, that's the fucking worst part of the whole game. Blissful ignorance.
Gross.
Bliss.
Which ending is that? Is that the perfect day one?
That piece of shit gets bliss.
A perfect day is one ending, and then blissful ignorance is another one. That's why I'm the idea that the developer is pro-incest, which is the weirdest sentence I've had to ever say.
Yeah.
Anyway, onto the third runner-up. Third runner-up. And I had to go with Arcade Blob, who said, I would just cry at them until they believed me. And I think that's where I would be.
That's so on brand for Blob as well. I love it.
It's such an absurd thing to have to do that it would just I wouldn't know where to start.
And you just cry.
So good.
You just break down.
Brilliant.
So all good choices. There could only be one winner, and that winner is Rough Puff, who, to get out of a time loop, suggested this. I predict all their moves. I wake up and reach for their phone. They wake up and reach for their phone, but I moved it. Their glasses aren't where they should be either, so they leave their room. They find me wearing them while I drink the last of the milk, which they need for their cereal from the carton. Right before they leave to use the toilet, I go running into the bathroom and lock the door. I scream from the other side that I predicted all their moves because I'm in a time loop, but they say I'm just an asshole. They're not wrong.
The running into the bathroom proves nothing. I love it.
Good.
Yeah, so good.
No, but none of the things prove anything. It's just like
So much unnecessary detail.
Yeah. It's like Inspector Gadget just is like a step ahead, but he's just being annoying.
But also, Rough Puff there, I actually think that is the sort of like Steam summary for 12 minutes. That is like, take the last two sentences
That's
there.
true.
and
That's
you've
true.
got basically
I'm just an
that's the
asshole, but
game.
not wrong.
So congratulations to Rough Puff. You have won yourself a mug and book to be delivered at some day when we
Post-COVID.
all get together again. But you also get a copy of next month's Game Club game, and we will buy you that copy on the platform of your choice. And we can now reveal what that next month Game Club game is going to be and who's going to lead it. It is going to be Gus taking lead on that. And Gus, what game are you going to be playing for the... I guess it's the September Game Club game.
I heard you guys like time loops. So I'm going to play, hopefully, a good time loop game, and that is, of course, Deathloop, which comes out on the 14th of September, so a couple of weeks until that drops. And then when that comes out, I will be streaming that one and hopefully not having sex with a sibling.
Ideally, that will be...
Ideally.
that will-
I mean,
that-
it's
that will
getting
be the
good.
scenario.
It's getting good previews that are
It
going
is,
out.
yeah.
I'm doing my best. We've talked about this. I'm doing my best not to watch them because I really want to experience that game. And a lot of people have said the previews are hard to describe because it's a really unique game. So yeah, really got fingers crossed for that one to be a lot of fun. And yeah, that should be good. Which means we've got a couple of weeks in between now and then to stream some other stuff as well, which we're looking forward to as well.
It is funny that like in everything that the developers talk about Deathloop, one of the things they mention is that you won't need to do the same thing every single run, that there are going to be things that you can do to like shortcut your way through this thing. And it's like, I haven't even played the game yet, and the game is already doing a better time loop.
And I can't believe it's going to get 100% as a review score. Like that's a wonderful little cherry on the top as well that just would carry anyone who picked it for their game league.
I think 100% wouldn't even help you guys.
100 would mean he gets 100 points over the course of the year. It would be
I'll take it.
We'll take that time loop and pick again at the beginning of the year. So that's going to be 12 minutes. That's going to be Deathloop. So we'll start streaming that. When it comes out on the 14th of September.
So
and
a
I
week
really
and
should
a half,
have
2 weeks. For a second, when you said, and that'll be 12 minutes, I'm like, shit, we're in a loop. I'm going to be made to play the next game.
But I was going to say the 14th of September is a Tuesday, which means it's probably coming out on the Wednesday. So we'll be playing it on the Friday or something, the first Friday after it comes out. So
I'll play it on the Wednesday.
Yeah, you're playing on Wednesday? You'll play it on Wednesday? Fuck it. Let's do it.
Why don't I finish it all in one go? Why don't I do that? Like some kind of crazy idiot. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Cool. So, Peter, you frozen again?
He's stuck in a loop.
Okay.
He's just stuck.
Was he? Because he no, he's gone. He's gone.
Steve,
Okay.
sir,
You can just come in here and say goodbye from here.
It happened. It happened during the stream.
I saw when he was
but he had this awful face where he was kind of like trying to prop up his melting left cheek. So okay, well, I don't know how we're gonna get out of the show.
No, he says I can still end the show. Just tell me when to cut. He sent a panicked message just then.
Okay, cool. So with that, I think that we should probably talk for another hour and a half.
Sure.
Or should we just back it out?
Let's back it out.
Let's back it out.
Thanks for watching, everyone.